Hello, I'm Liliana Cimpoies, Associate Professor at the Academy of Economic Studies of Moldova, and I would like to present to you our research paper about foreign trade competitiveness of agricultural products, the case of Moldova. For the Republic of Moldova, agriculture and food products are the main exported commodities. This is important to assess their competitiveness on the old market and to estimate the possible advantages and disadvantages and to strengthen the position of those products which performance could improve. The aim of this research was to estimate the possible trade advantages and disadvantages of Moldova on the world agricultural markets. In this paper, the competitiveness of agri-food products will be estimated based on trade indicators. One of the main indicators that allows us to estimate the comparative advantages of a country or sector was introduced by Balan and is called the revealed comparative advantages. Based on Balan's approach, the comparative advantages are revealed through the high share of a certain good or sector, or its disadvantages reflected in low shares in the country's total exports. It is considered that the values of the revealed comparative advantages index is not possible to compare on both sides of one, according to Widodo, and a better approach is considered to be the revealed symmetric comparative advantages index introduced by Dahlem and Lawson in 1998. Another important trade indicator that allows to establish if a country is specialized in exports or imports for a specific product is total balance index. According to total balance index, it is possible to determine if a country is a net exporter or a net importer for a certain group of products. In order to assess the country's competitiveness, a product mapping tool was used, which was introduced by Widodo in 2009. The product mapping is based on the revealed symmetric comparative advantages index and total balance index and allows us to divide the commodities into 4 groups, creating a matrix. So we will have as a result group A, B, C, and D. According to this matrix, classification approach in group A, commodities with comparative advantage and export specialization will be included. In group B will be included the commodities with comparative advantage but with lack of export specialization. For group C and D, commodities that do not have a comparative advantage will be included, but in the same time, in group C, the commodities will have an export specialization, while group D products will lack export specialization. However, some researchers propose a modified product mapping scheme where the revealed symmetric comparative advantages index is substituted with the LAFI index. This is explained because the revealed symmetric comparative advantages index does not take into consideration the real intensity of imports, thus it is proposed to replace this indicator with LAFI index. This estimation based on LAFI index and total balance index allows us to obtain a more precise information about the real competitiveness of the agri-food trade commodity structure. LAFI index is a trade estimator that does not consider world variables. LAFI index allows us to investigate bilateral trade among countries or regions. According to LAFI index, it is possible to explain how comparative advantages develop over time and allows us a comparison of the strength of comparative advantages of the individual products and product groups for countries or regions. According to the new product mapping approach, the results are still divided as previously into 4 groups based already on LAFI index and total balance index. In group A, I include commodities with comparative advantages and export specialization. In group B, will be included the commodities with comparative advantages but with lack of export specialization, while in Group C and D include commodities that do not have a comparative advantage, but in Group C still the products will have an export specialization, while Group D the products will lack export specialization. Concerning Moldova's trade flows, we could mention that Moldova still have a negative trade balance due to its disadvantages of endowment in natural resources that leads to large amount of imports, mainly gas and energetic resources. A major export share in Moldova's trade activity is represented by the agricultural and food products. Its amount was slightly decreasing during the last decade, but it still maintains basically half of the country's total export share. Exports of agricultural and food products represented 43% from overall traded commodities during the last year. The agricultural and food products in overall export had a share of 45%, but nevertheless, we could say that agri-food imports represent only 14% in total imported goods. Both agri-food exports and imports increased in the last period. In total agri-food trade flows, a greater share is represented by agricultural products, while food products represent only about 30%. Exports with agricultural products increased after 2008, while imports of food products present an increasing trend since 2005. Also, we could mention some changes in the territorial distribution of the trade flows. During this period, still the main trading partners remain European Union countries, CIS, and also other countries. Nevertheless, the European market became the main trading partner for Moldova. Particularly, the trade flows of the European Union market increased continuously because of the closer collaboration generated through different trade facilitations, through a general system of preferences and autonomous trade preferences, which granted some facilities for certain agricultural products as sugar and beverages. The greater impact on the bilateral trade flows with the European Union was generated by signing the Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement in 2014. Of course, this last event contributed to a great expansion of exports towards the European market, approximately a 10% increase. Particularly a great benefit had the agricultural and food products, despite previous fears that this could negatively affect the agri-food exports. The exports of agri-food products increased of over 50% after signing the Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement. This large increase in the case of agri-food commodities that are considered less competitive is proof that trade liberalization had not a negative impact on Moldova's agri-food trade. For agri-food products, main partner on European market remains Romania, followed by countries as Poland, Italy, and Germany. In relation to CIS market, we could notice a constant decrease caused by restrictive measures applied by Russian Federation in different years, like 2016, later on in 2013 for wine export interdiction, In 2014, imposed additional tariffs and interdiction of fruits and meat exports. The economic recession in Ukraine, of course, affected the trade flows toward that market, and from 2013 it is a constant decrease of exports toward CIS countries. On CIS market, important trade partners remain Russian Federation, Ukraine and Belarus. The structure of the most exported agri-food products did not experience significant changes. The top of exported agriculture and food products, about 85%, is for only 6 commodities, as oilseeds and oleaginous food, cereals, edible fruit and nuts, and also beverages. The structure of agriculture and food imports, nevertheless, is more diverse. About 70% of agri-food imports belong to 13 commodities, as dairy products, beverages, oilseeds, and oleaginous fruits. From both, 40% belong to agricultural products. So the aggregations from 1 to 15. Moldova's export competitiveness is characterized by export heterogeneity. So the structure of agri-food exports is represented only by few aggregations. Concerning the product mapping approach, we could notice that Moldova had positive LAFA index and trade balance index for commodities as oilseeds and oleaginous plants, cereals, beverages, edible fruits and nuts, animal or vegetable fats and oils, preparations of vegetables. Moreover, we had both competitive advantage based on the LAFA index and positive trade balance index for 6 agricultural commodities and only 2 food products, among which are included beverages. According to the LAFA index and total balance index estimated separately for agricultural commodities, aggregations from 1 to 15, and food products, aggregations 16 to 24, trade advantages are obvious for agricultural products, while foodstuffs in general mostly present disadvantages. Moldova had competitive disadvantage and positive trade balance in relation with the European market. Nevertheless, analyzing trade competitiveness based by main trading partners, an obvious increase in the case of European market and other trade balance was observed, and disadvantages toward CIS market after 2013. In relation to other trading partners, the competitive advantages started to increase after 2013. In the case of trade relations with the European Union, the increase in competitiveness after 2013 coincides with signing the DCFTA that could have generated the increased agricultural and food trade flows on the European market. An important step for Moldova's comparative advantages increase depends on the level of integration on that market. In conclusions, we would like to mention that, of course, there were changes in the examined both export and import trade flows over this period. So Moldova's exports increased by 80%, while imports increased only by 50%. The agri-food trade balance is still positive, Moldova being net exporter of agricultural and food commodities. During this period, the European Union strengthened its position as main market for Moldova's exports, mostly due to the close collaboration after the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement. Concerning the product mapping approach, we noticed positive LAFA index and total balance index for commodities as oilseeds and oleaginous plants, cereals, beverages, edible fruits and nuts, animal, vegetable fats and oils, preparations of vegetables. According to the LAFA index and total balance index estimated separately for agricultural commodities and food commodities, trade disadvantages are obvious for agricultural products, while foodstuffs in general present disadvantages. Moldova had competitive disadvantage and positive trade balance in relation of European market, being noticed an obvious increase as well as with other trade partners. While in relation to the CIS market, mostly disadvantages had increased during this period. That's all. Thank you for your kind attention.